The MLB Gambling Podcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by Calcium. Make real money predicting sports. Calcium available in every state. Also get $20 for free when you sign up with the promo code SGPN. That's Calcium promo code SGPN. And welcome everyone to the MLB Gambling Podcast here on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. Currently Friday afternoon, February 20th, around 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time. I'm your host, Reichel, joined again by Lonte Smith. Together we're going to break down the NL Central Division. I know that Mal and Dylan did the NL East Division. This is going to be the second division preview for the upcoming season. Closer than you might think. A reminder, we do have the World Baseball Classic coming up in a few weeks first. But either way, point is we're going to break down the divisions once again. Lonte, how's it going with you? What's up? How excited are you for spring training, which I think is starting, today?
Yeah, man, I'm pretty good. Just counting down the days. It's going to be it's always a fun time whenever it starts, and then you kind of get into, the dog days, July and like early June, and it's like, dang, the season is really, really long. But it's a grind. It's really helpful to kind of get on this stuff early. So I'm glad we're doing these previews and kind of learning from each other to put some money in everybody's pocket.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I do want to remind everybody the actual schedule, which I did end up creating over the last day or so. We're doing the divisions first, then we're going to do the World Baseball Classic, and then after that ends, there's about a 9-day gap in between the end of the World Baseball Classic and opening day. So we'll do the awards, the MVP stuff, the Rookie of the Year stuff in between those 9 days. So there you go. That's going to be the schedule, but there will be WBC content on this channel as well. So before we get into the actual breakdown of the teams in the NL Central, a reminder that if you want to find all of our picks and podcasts for the entire SGPN platform, check out the SGPN app. Free to download in the App Store. So once again, get access to all the picks and podcasts in one easy location. Check out the SGPN app. So getting into the actual division, we're going to go by lowest win total to highest win total. We're going to go in order, starting off with the team that's supposed to be one of the worst teams in the league, the St. Louis Cardinals, as their win total is at 69.5. For the playoff odds, 6-1 to make the playoffs, 30-1 to win the division, and 200-1 to win the World Series. I use DraftKings for the sake of the odds. You can shop around. I'm sure you'll find different prices elsewhere. Now, for the Cardinals, looking briefly at the rotation, you have Liberatore, who might be their opening day starter. Once again, 69 projected wins for this team because Liberatore is their opening day starter. They got Dustin May from Boston in free agency, Palante, McGreevy, and you also have Leahy as the fifth starter right now. For the actual offseason, they really didn't do much. Mikolas went to the Nationals. Besides that, really nothing else happened. So you're looking at the lineup just based on projection being Nootbaar, Herrera, you have Burleson, Gorman, Wynn. You also have Walker, Pages, Scott. You might end up seeing Weatherholt or maybe a Pozo or some other guys in there. But either way, point is the team does look pretty bad on paper. Lonte, I'll let you go first. I know we're used to seeing the Pirates being in the lowest win total category for this division. First of all, do you agree that this Cardinals team should have a win total below 70?
I think it's probably about right, to be honest. I mean, what they won 78 last year, and that was, I would say, that was kind of overachieving, to be honest, because they had that. If I'm not mistaken, they started off pretty good, and then hit a slump, and then went back to being in a wild card contention. And then
that actually is one thing I should have addressed before. I should also mention the wins from last season. The Cardinals, as you said, did have 78 last year.
Yeah, and so I think the number is about right. I mean, from what they on paper, I agree they don't have a attractive roster, especially the rotation. Like I like some of the offensive guys. I like Pages as a catcher. I like Burleson. He's intriguing. You talked about JJ, who's probably going to be taking over for Donovan. I'm assuming 7th overall pick in 2024. I think he had a 304, 418, 487 slash line with 19 home runs and just over 130 minor league starts last year. So I mean, something to build upon. I just don't know if like that rotation. I mean, you're going from Liberatore to May, Palante, McGreevy. Like that's not.
It's a really bad rotation.
Yeah, that's not something that you want to kind of put your money on early. Maybe they get into a groove and some of the younger guys come up and pitch a little bit better, and we kind of find a breakout star. But I do love Mason Wynn. He's unbelievable. But I mean, I just don't. I can't trust I can't trust the defense as far as the pitching staff to kind of get right there. I mean, if I had to, it would be slightly over, just because some of those pieces like with Wynn, Burleson, if Pages, comes back, I think he's got a 643 OPS over the last 2 years. Like the offense, I think will be okay with those pieces if they can be consistent. But I just don't trust that. I just can't trust that pitching staff. I mean, we talked about it. So on paper, doesn't look good. A lot of unproven pieces long term, but I think the number's about right. I would slightly go over if I had to.
I have to point out as well that, of course, Arenado is no longer on the team because he went to Arizona. Now, he was pretty horrific last year. He batted 237, had an on base of 289. Then again, he does give you above average third baseman defense every year. I mean, of course, he's an all-time great third baseman defender. He's gotten a little bit worse over the years, of course, with older age, but he's still definitely a plus defender at that position. And we know St. Louis always prided itself on fundamentals with defense, etc. I'm shocked Marmol's still here as the manager, just based on how the franchise has kind of imploded over the last few years. But I think this win total seems about right. On one hand, the NL Central is usually pretty unpredictable. So you might see a bunch of other teams in this division who underachieve as well. And a bunch of these division games, no matter how bad one team is, can still find a way to maybe even split a season series. That wouldn't totally shock me. Then again, you mentioned the offense being okay, the pitching being a bit of a problem. In a pitcher's friendly ballpark like Busch Stadium, that's not good. I could see this team having a bunch of stretches where they score less than 4 runs for a week straight. Like, I can see that happening, and I think that's going to be a very tough ask for this pitching staff with this rotation to find ways to manufacture 9 innings of 3 runs or less pitching. I'm not sure you can actually pull that off. So I like the under. I think this team will be bad. You're mentioning a couple of good players. Will they be there post-trade deadline? I don't know. Like, they might be trading off some pieces. But this franchise was, of course, one of the most consistent franchises over the years, and they've just hit rock bottom over the last couple of years, especially. Either way, point is, I don't think this team will be very good. I think this team might be tanking at some point, or at least trying to rebuild. So you're mentioning Burleson. He could be a trade piece, for example. I think they'll keep Wynn because Wynn's still young, so I see him being a part of the future. But I do think this team in general is not really that good. And if you're looking at Pittsburgh, we'll mention in a second, getting better. I know Milwaukee got worse, but they're still going to be better than this team. And we know the Reds are going to be hovering around 500 almost every year. So based on that, I do like the under. I just think this offense might be okay. But in this environment at home in Busch Stadium with this pitching staff, it's going to be tough. They basically have one way to win games as far as I'm concerned, and that's winning a bunch of 4-3 games. And I'm not really sold on the pitching staff, including the bullpen, to really just do enough to cause that many low-scoring games. Their closer right now is arguably Riley O'Brien. I mean, you're looking at the likes of JoJo Romero. They got Stanek in the bullpen, who maybe will end up being a closer. But their bullpen's not good either. So I don't really like this entire pitching staff. I'm on the under. I think this team could actually lose like 98 games. I'm not saying they're going to, but I do think this pitching staff is it. I know that we're going to talk about other teams like Colorado at some point, etc. This has to be a bottom 5 pitching staff in the league, right? I mean, I don't think this is even a discussion because the bullpen is arguably worse than the starters.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, this. I mean, if they had just at least maybe one guy, it would be a lot better. But they don't have.
And Stanek is not that guy. He's a veteran. That's basically it.
Yeah, they don't have a guy. And what happens if, obviously, we know injuries typically. What happened if they lose a guy or two out of the rotation?
Like you're calling up AAA people.
I mean, and that's just even worse.
What's Lance Lynn up to?
Yeah,
you just bring him back for the 40th time. Like, I don't know. Is Wainwright still working for Fox? No, like, I don't know. The point is, if anybody gets injured, they're especially screwed.
Right.
And they're not in a good spot to begin with.
Yeah, that's the issue I have with as far as just the pitching staff, man. And you talked about the bullpen. I didn't even hit on the bullpen because I figured it was just, set in stone that everybody knew it was going to be bad. So they're going to have to rely, if these guys can't go, 5 2/3, maybe even 6, it's going to be tough, man. It's going to be tough for them.
This might sound disrespectful because 30-1 is a large number for a division. I think it's actually too low. I know the Cubs right now, spoiler, are projected to win this division with around 88.5 wins. I don't see the Cardinals getting over 80. Like, I'm trying to figure out what paths they even have besides, I don't know, Angels in the outfield where everything just goes right and you get some paranormal activity involved. This team's going to be awful. Like this team, looking at the construction, I know the movie Major League, they turned out to be good, but it's a lot of who the hell are these guys? That's kind of what I feel about for the actual pitching staff, especially the bullpen. I think 30 to 1 is actually kind of low. I think it should be closer to like 40 to 1. This team should be bottom 5 in the league. Do we agree on that? I mean, I think that's a pretty safe statement.
Yeah, that's 100%. I agree.
Yeah, so make the playoffs, no, at
No,
6 to 1.
absolutely
There you
not.
go.
Absolutely not.
Anything else you want to add for this team? Because I feel like we touched upon it. They're not very good. They might trade away some veteran pieces, but does Marmol make it through the season? I know it's not his fault that this construction of a roster, really no managers could succeed, but I expect him to get canned halfway through the season. Is that fair?
Yeah, probably. It just kind of depends on how it goes. I mean, I think going in, they know, like, hey, this is not one of our more talented teams, so it's only so much that he could do. But if it gets to the point where it's like really bad, then I can kind of see it. But other than
that's
that,
kind of what I see.
yeah, other than that,
So.
if it goes, if they're hovering around with like 65, between 65 and 70 wins, then I think they'll be fine.
I couldn't feel.
But if it goes really bad, he'll be.
I'm just saying, I could see them
hypothetically
hypothetically being 20 games under within the first 60 games of the season. Like, I think this could definitely go south very quickly. So there we go. That's going to be our thoughts on the Cardinals. Moving on to the next team, a team that's supposed to be decent for the first time in I don't know how long, since prime Andrew McCutchen was still there. The Pirates are at 78.5 wins. So still projected to be below 500, but you know what? That's progress, damn it. That counts for something. For the playoffs, 425, for division, 8 to 1, and for World Series, 100 to 1. Now, Pittsburgh actually made some moves in the offseason, to the shock of many. So for the update for the free agency tracker, so Pham is, as far as I know, still a free agent. McCutchen, still a free agent. Other than that, though, for the actual rotation, you have Skeens, who is 1A, 1B with Skubal as best pitcher in the league. Still have Keller. You have Ashcraft. You have Bubba Chandler, who's a very, very talented, I'd say highly touted prospect. Well, he came up a little bit at the end of last year. We'll see how he looks in the rotation. And they got Urquidy in free agency, who we know is more of a depth fifth starter. So that's good. That's a pretty standard number 5 starter. For the bullpen, you have Dennis Santana right now as the projected closer. You have Gregory Soto as the setup guy, which could go a couple of ways. Besides that, really nobody else that's that great. They got Justin Lawrence from Colorado, who has some good stuff, but the volatility is definitely there. Mason Montgomery is also a potential reliever there. For the actual lineup for this team, you have Horowitz, you have Brandon Lowe. So that's one of the main moves they ended up making during the offseason. Reynolds is still there. They got Ryan O'Hearn in free agency. They got Ozuna from the Braves in free agency as well. O'Neal Cruz, Nick Gonzalez, Triolo, and Bart. So once again, you end up getting Lowe. You ended up getting O'Hearn. You got Ozuna. And the rotation's not that bad. Now, do I trust Dennis Santana as a closer? No. Do I like Soto as a setup guy? No. So the bullpen's still a question mark. But like St. Louis, this is a very pitchers-friendly environment with a pretty good rotation and an offense that should not totally embarrass itself as much as it had in previous years. So I'm going to ask you, Lonte, 78.5 wins, fair or foul?
Yeah, I think it's fair. I would go over. I mean, 71 wins last year, so you're asking for, a +8 in a department where they have gotten better. Last year when we looked, I think we all said that, Pittsburgh did a disservice to their staff, to their pitching staff, because, I mean, Skeens is awesome, and you didn't do anything to kind of help him out in that department. And still they need help with the bullpen, like you said. But the rotation of the top 4 guys will be fine. And I think they showed that down the stretch when they were winning games, and in spite of their offense, because their offense was atrocious last year. Like they were games where they were supposed to win, and like extra inning games where they were hoping to like 1 run and they couldn't get 2 runs across. Like they were 30th in runs scored, 28th in hits per game, 30th in home runs per game, and 7th in ERA. So that just
watching them play, all those stats check out.
Yeah, and I mean, just looking at, just all you have to do is just look at Skeen's record. Like, I mean, it's just like he's that good with that good of like numbers, whether you look at advanced stuff or just general numbers. Like he's that good, and the team still loses like half of his starts. You know what I mean? So
it's Felix Hernandez vibes.
Yeah, that's true. And so I do think that they upgraded offensively. So if they don't. The thing is, you're getting +8 wins in a division that only one team I would say that we would both agree on, or that most people would most agree on, that like they're in a different like category. The other ones are, outside of St. Louis being at the bottom, and they're obviously going to beat a couple teams here and there, but like I think that somebody has to win games. Milwaukee's going to regress a little bit, and I think that Pittsburgh, with their rotation, with some of the stuff that they have, all they have to do is be, right above average, right at average, or a little bit below average. Like if they can go from 28 and 30 to like rankings from 28 or and 30th to like
If they
15,
jump into like 22 or 20,
right.
that's still a decent amount
And
of wins.
if they go 15 and 16, they might get 82, 83 wins.
Yeah.
So I like the team to go over. I think just from a number and projection perspective, the roster checks out is better. The division is, quote unquote worse, with only one real contender in it, I think. So I like over. I think Pittsburgh is going to be a team prime for like a wild card spot if everything goes right.
Yeah, so the way that I look at this Pittsburgh team on paper, I'm looking at them compared to the other teams in terms of the offseason. Would you argue that they are the most improved team in this division just based on the moves they made with free agency, et cetera? Because I think I would make that argument.
Yeah, they would have to be, because I mean they didn't have a ton to improve on the following year because they didn't do anything. So
Yeah.
I mean, just looking at it from an offensive perspective, like you bring in Ozuna, who champion, he can hit the ball. Like you bring in O'Hara, like they have players. They brought in players who can elevate a weakness that they had. So yeah, I agree with that. Other than the bullpen, I think they improved everywhere.
We'll get into a couple of other teams in a second. We just said it before. The Cardinals really didn't do anything to improve their team. Of course, the Cubs lost a big player. We'll mention that in a second. They, in theory, replaced them at a different position, but still. The point is, we have seen a couple of teams kind of moving some chairs around. The Brewers traded away arguably the best pitcher on their entire staff. So we'll see how the Pirates look, but I do want to give ownership props for once, because instead of sitting around collecting a free, basically paycheck from the league, they actually spent some money for the first time in a couple of years. So we'll see if it works out, but I'm not saying Pittsburgh's going to be good, but they'll be watchable, which is saying a lot for this team. And I think that 80, 81 wins is not out of the realm of possibility here. I can see them being on the list of in the hunt for a wild card spot with like a month to go, but they're 9 back. Like it's not realistic they get in, but they're still on the graphic, which is something that I can't say I've seen from the Pirates logo over the last couple of years. They might not be totally eliminated with a couple weeks to go. I don't think they get into the playoffs, but I think they'll be able to be somewhat in the hunt while not actually getting in. But I have them around 80 and 82. That's kind of my win projection for this team. I got the over. I'm assuming you agree with roughly the same exact win projection that I had.
81 to 83, in between that.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at, so I'll go with the over. Cardinals, by the way, I forgot to ask you for your exact win total. I got the under. I think they're going to end up with, if I had to guess on a record here, I think the Cardinals really might lose like 95 games. I got the Cardinals at 67. I got them at 67 and 95. I got the Pirates at 80 and 82. What are your thoughts on the win total for the Cardinals, by the way? I know you said you had the over, but what do you have, like 72
I mean, literally,
and 90?
I would just go like one game over. I would go 70.
Yeah.
I would go 70.
Okay, so you got 70 and 92. Okay.
70 and 92, yeah. But I can see I can envision a process where they trade off a lot of those guys and then just kind of play the younger guys, and they may lose 96, 97 games. But with the Pirates, I would think like 81-ish, 80, a high end of 83 if those offensive numbers kind of tick up into be, above average. But as long as they're average, I think they'll be fine.
I think they're in that, I'd say, purgatory area where they're not good enough to make the playoffs, but they're also not totally embarrassing themselves out there. Coincidentally, kind of like the Reds for the last few years, where they're going to be hovering around 500, not good enough to actually play postseason baseball. I know the Reds made the postseason last year, but you get my point. I think they're going to be in that area. I got them at around 80 or 81. But anyway, that's going to wrap it up with the first 2 teams in the NL Central. Before we get into the remainder of the division, a reminder, they're brought to you by our sponsor, Kalshi. So make real money predictions available in every single state. And also have a ton of options for trading on your favorite sports. Besides sports, they also have other options like politics, entertainment, and even the weather. And if you're new to the platform, new customers get $20 when they sign up with the code SGPN. That's Kalshi, SHI, code SGPN for free $20 to sign up at Kalshi. We're also brought to by Rebet. So Rebet is the #1 social sports book out there in casino. And a reminder, you can also check them out in a bunch of states, 35 plus states, including Texas and California. Plus, get 100% purchase match up to $100 with the code SGPN. That's Rebet, promo code SGPN. Welcome back, everyone, to the ML Game Podcast. Finished going through the first two teams for the NL Central. Time to move on into the first team with a win total projecting a winning record. We have the Reds at around 81.5. Once again, you might find a win or two difference if you shop around, but I mainly see 81.5. For the playoff, they made it last year. You might have forgotten they lost immediately to the Dodgers in the first round, but still, the Dodgers won the title. So I guess in hindsight, the Reds didn't do too badly, but they snuck in because the Mets choked against the Marlins over the weekend of the final season. Shout out to D-Rock. Anyway, for the Reds, plus 145 to make the playoffs, plus 370 to win the division, and 40-1 to win the World Series. And once again, their win total is exactly at 81.5. Now, for the rotation, should be pretty good. You're looking at Hunter Green, who, hoping he stays healthy, we know has a lot of upside. Abbott, we know, can be quite good. Singer, you also have Lodolo and Chase Burns. Burns came up last year, very, very highly touted rookie. Kind of got beat around a little bit. It was one really bad start where he gave up like 10 runs in the first inning, but he's got nasty stuff, and we'll see if he can look better as his career progresses. But overall, a pretty good rotation, 1 through 5. For the bullpen, which is always the issue this team runs into, Pagan is their projected closer. You have fun with that. Centillon, you also have Ashcraft, you have a Burke. They ended up getting Pierce Johnson from Atlanta, Caleb Ferguson from Seattle, but nobody really that's that great in this bullpen. For the actual, once again, lineup here, Friedel, Marte, Dela Cruz, they got Suarez in a return. He ended up coming over from free agency from the Mariners. They have Sal Stewart, Stevenson, Blade, that they got from the A's, who I actually like. Could be a pretty good doubles guy in that ballpark. McLean and Cabrian Hayes. So basically the same lineup as last year with the exception of Suarez at DH and Blade playing left field. I actually kind of like this team. I think this team with that rotation could actually be pretty good. Now, it's kind of funny because they're the exact opposite of the Cardinals. They play in a hitters-friendly ballpark, and I like the rotation. So we'll see how that goes, but I like the over. I think they should make the playoffs, actually. We're going to mention the Brewers and the Cubs in a second. I know that last year we had 3 teams get in from the NL Central. This team on paper is pretty good. I'm not sure they're going to be able to find enough, I'd say enough non-blown saves late in games, because I do think this bullpen should be a mess. But I like the lineup in general. I like the rotation. They still got Francona, who's got a lot of experience, of course, as the manager. And they got him last year. So I'll go with the over. I think this team should win, in my opinion, like 86. I think this team's not that bad. So I'll go with the over in Cincinnati. What are your thoughts on this team?
Yeah, this is another one where I'm kind of right on a number. I would say like 82, 83. Like you said, on paper, they look good. It's just that I just have a hard time trusting them because of what they are accustomed to. I mean, they won 83 last year. So in full context, they are down a couple of wins, and I don't think they got worse. I think they got a little bit better, but I wouldn't. It's just hard to trust them, man. Like that's the main thing. It's just hard to trust them. With the rotation is really good, but if Green goes down, then you have those guys elevating. I do like Rhett Lauder, who's really good. He's got some really good stuff. I like the rookie the #1 prospect, Sal Stewart. I like him. He hit 5 runs in September when he was called up last year. So
we'll see how he transitions to full-time MLB pitching, but in a limited sample, he looked very, very comfortable.
Yeah. So, I mean, they just got a lot of inconsistencies within there. Like they had a below average offense, below average bullpen. They were inconsistent. They only can win games one way. They're not really, keen on winning like 2-0 games. Like they have to score, outscore you to win. They're not really accustomed to winning low-scoring games. And I think they need a big leap from Matt McLean this year. He struggled last year after coming off surgery in 2024. So, maybe he's a year from that. So he's, a little bit more consistent. But I kind of got to see it first. I want to see them, actually play for like a month or two before I buy in. But as far as the over/under, I think it's just about right. I would go slightly over, maybe 82. Probably maybe a repeat of last year, 83 wins.
Yeah, so I think they get better, personally. We'll mention Milwaukee in a second and Chicago, but I do think the Reds on paper look pretty good. Now, as you said before, if Green gets hurt again, then the rotation might end up making a really, really ugly turn because they might have to call up some other guys who aren't ready. But I do think on paper, this team is at least a 500 team, probably better. Also, pretty funny that they got into the playoffs with 83 wins, but that's a whole separate story. But I'll go with the over. I think worst case scenario, they repeat 83, but I actually have them at like 87. I think this team could be a pretty solid contender for this division. I'm not saying they're going to win the division, but I think that make playoffs at plus 145, I think you can make an argument for it. I think that this team is definitely, I'd say, a pretty well-rounded team if things click into place. Yes, the rotation's good. The bullpen should be a mess, as it usually is in this team. So maybe you'll see them as a good live bet over team for individual games, because as soon as the starter comes out, you might just see a bunch of chaos. That wouldn't shock me either. But I'll go with the over on the Reds. I think this number is a little bit low, and I do think after making the playoffs last year, I can see them getting back there. But I do think 85 wins, 86 wins sounds about right to me. So I'm on the over. And it sounds like you're on the over, but not as confident. That's kind of the vibe I'm getting.
82, 83, slightly over. I got to see it first.
Okay, so we agree that they're going to be over 500.
Yeah, I agree with that. 100%.
Cool. Anything else you want to add? Any interest in maybe the no juiced for the playoffs, or not even going to bother there?
Yeah, I think it's better in season to see what the other NL teams look like as far as that, because you talked about it, like they got into the playoffs, but it really wasn't because they did anything to warrant being in the playoffs.
It was just the Mets completely falling apart.
It's just the Mets didn't do what they were supposed to do. So that situation is always hard to kind of like predict. But if they, like you said, if everything clicks right and you get, better seasons from De La Cruz, better seasons from McLean, the young guy plays well, the pitching staff stays healthy, then I can kind of see them, maybe pushing even 90 wins.
Yeah.
Because they have the pitching to do so. It's just that they have to figure out a way to win in more than one way. So that's what I'm really worried about.
I hope they trade for a reliever at some point during the season. Hopefully they are buyers at the deadline and they end up acquiring a closer.
Yeah.
Which would be pretty nice. But I'd say unlike the Cardinals and the Pirates, I do see a certain ceiling that could get them into serious division contention. Pittsburgh's ceiling, I think, is still going to be second place, basically, as a ceiling. I think Cincinnati is the first team that we've talked about that, in theory, could win this division. Is that a fair statement? Because it kind of feels that way. I didn't hear you say anything.
Oh, my bad. I agree with that. I'm sorry.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Anyway, you ready to move on to the next team?
Yeah, we're good. Yeah, we're good to go. Yeah.
Cool. So moving on to Milwaukee, the Brewers are at 84.5 wins. A reminder that last year, the Brewers won a bunch of games. Milwaukee ended up winning a total of they won 97 last year. So a massive regression is projected for them. Now, for the free agency, they got Woodruff back in the qualifying offer. You're looking at them losing Danny Jansen. They lost Quintana. They lost Shelby Miller. I forgot Shelby Miller was on this team. They lost Tassa, who I forgot was there too. Basically, nobody really worth a damn. I ended up leaving. Hoskins is still a free agent, but I think we'd agree that's not really meaning much. Now, for the actual projected starting rotation, Woodruff for now, we'll see if he gets injured again. Probably, but when healthy, he's really good. They have Mizorowski, who we saw start off great. Then he kind of fell apart, but in the postseason, he was pretty good. Priester, who was phenomenal last season. Chad Patrick and Logan Henderson. So for the actual bullpen, though, it is once again very, very nasty with Uribe, with McGill, with Koenig, with Ashby, with Zerpa, who they ended up getting in a trade with Kansas City. So that is a new face, but still a lefty to add. Anderson, a couple other guys, but this bullpen is always one of the best in the entire league, and the lineup still looks very good. Churio, Terang, Contreras, Yelich, Vaughn, who is very good since they traded for him from the White Sox. Frelick, they got Rengifo from the Angels in free agency, Mitchell and Ortiz. They also got Gary Sanchez as a lefty masher if they want it. They got Bowers as well. They got Hamilton from the Red Sox. They have a little bit of speed there on the bench as well as Perkins. I love the over. I don't understand why this is 84.5. They're my pick to win the division. We'll mention the Cubs in a second, but I think 240 is a great price. I mean, we've seen Milwaukee win the small ball way. They don't need to hit home runs. They can score potentially 15 runs in a game, just courtesy of singles and doubles. We've seen it before. They walk a lot. I love their next man up lineup where anybody can beat you in a given day. Churio is nasty when he's healthy, but the fact is he got injured last year. Woodruff got injured last year, and they still won 97. They won a bunch of games by beating you in a variety of ways. The bullpen's really good. If they're winning after 7 innings, you can argue that it's over because they were just that good late with Uribe and with McGill at the back end of that bullpen. The rotation's pretty good, and the lineup's good. I don't see enough pieces leaving that suggests that this team should totally fall apart. Yes, they ended up losing Peralta. I get it. It sucks to lose your number one pitcher. At the same point, though, I do think Peralta is obviously not worth 13 wins. So I like the over. I think Milwaukee still might get to 90. They remind me of the late 2000s Rays teams where you just look at the roster and you go, well, they should probably win somewhere in the 80s. And you look up and they have 95. They just find a way to win games with Murphy ball, basically. I'm on the over. I think 84.5 is criminally low for a team that's owned this division for about the last 5 years. I got the over on Milwaukee, and I think they win the division. So I'll ask you, what do you like for this Lonte?
Yeah, you know what? You made a great comparison with the Rays because that's exactly the type of organization that I think. I mean, Milwaukee's been elite for a long time with guys you don't really think to be, in that kind of category. I'm on under slightly because I think it's correlated. I'm assuming you would like the Cubs under because you like the Brewers over. I think
we'll get into that in a second, but yes.
Yeah, that's kind of correlated. I think that's kind of correlated. And also, like I was on the one under and one over before, so I just think that the balance of the conference is. I'm really high on the Cubs, so maybe that's the reason why. And I don't think Milwaukee will kind of go into the abyss or anything. I just think that the conference, we talked about the Pirates ascension up, talked about the Reds having potential to be one of those teams to kind of assert themselves long term. And when I see that, I think Milwaukee's the only team that didn't kind of get better. It kind of stayed the same and staying the same. I mean, I don't think 97 wins is stay the same thing, but it's just that I think that the other team, it's a product of the other teams being a little bit better, not better than them, but just a little bit better, and it'll be a lot more competitive. So I like under. I know what Milwaukee's capable of. I mean, they're patient at the plate. They were 5th in runs and hits per game, 5th in walks per game. They didn't strike out a lot. The one thing that they did do, or did not do at an elite level, was bring guys in. They were 28 in left on base percentage. So that's something that they have to get cleaned up. But again, I mean, the rotation, pretty good. The bullpen, elite. And I was reading some stuff about them, and they have supposedly some of the best, a young crop of infielders that they've had in a very long time. So they're higher on them. And I mean, that's what you expect from a team who develops guys in their farm system really good. So all that to say, slightly under, I think maybe 83-ish wins. So I'm not all the way out on them. I'm just kind of a little bit down.
I do want to ask you a question, though, Lonte. Ignoring the COVID season, do you know the last time the Brewers won less than 86 games in a season?
2016.
Okay. So it's been a long time. It's been roughly 10 years.
Yeah.
To go through the win totals here, once again, I will ignore the COVID season, but 86, 96, 89, 95, 86, 92, 93, 97. They just find ways to win 90 games almost every year. I'm on the over. I think 84.5 is actually kind of criminally low for this team, just based on what they've done year in, year out, finding ways to just have good teams, despite not having maybe the most, I'd say, impressive roster on paper. And as you mentioned before, they were not great at driving runners in. They also constantly have guys on base. They have guys on base all the time because they have so many guys that construct great at-bats. They work counts. They walk, they do the little things. I just like how they play. They're a very fundamentally sound baseball team, which eventually loses the high-end talent in the playoffs every year, like we saw against the Dodgers, for example. But still, Milwaukee's a very, very good team year in, year out. 84.5 feels too disrespectful based on, I'm going to use the key, I say cringy buzzword here, culture. They have a winning culture in place, and that's good enough for me. I'm on the over, and I think they actually can win this division, especially at that price. Moving on to the final team for the division, the Cubs are at 88.5 wins. Of course, the main departure was Kyle Tucker, who ended up leaving to join the Dodgers. Besides that, though, Keller went to Philly. You have Soroka, who ended up going to Arizona. Savale went to the A's. Imanaga, who ended up coming back. So they got him back. They got Thielbar back. McGuire left. He went to Milwaukee, but nobody really cares. You have Pomeranz, who ended up going to the Angels, who was actually pretty good in their bullpen last year. Castro went to the Rockies. Santana went to the Diamondbacks. I think most people forgot he was even on the Cubs last year. Besides that, a couple of other guys not really worth talking about, but either way, once again, they did see a bunch of people leave if you care about those guys. Now, for the rotation for the upcoming season, you have Boyd. They got Cabrera from Miami, who's nasty. He can't hold runners, and he's quite inconsistent, but his stuff is really, really good. So Cabrera's actually on a winning team. We'll see how that goes, but he's going to be arguably their number 2 starter. They got Horton. They have, who was great last year as a rookie. Imanaga, who's back, who really fell apart at the end of last year. Just a bunch of home runs. Just couldn't keep the ball in the ballpark. But we'll see how he does this time around. And Tyone, who was quite good last year. Now, for the bullpen, Palencia is the closer. They got Maton. They got Harvey. Both those guys were in free agency. Maton from Texas, and they got Harvey from Kansas City. I said before, Thielbar's back. They got Webb from Texas. They got Milner from Texas. So they really just got a bunch of Texas relievers. They got Assad, and they got Colin Rhea from free agency from the Brewers last year. But either way, we saw Rhea last year kind of up and down. He kind of reminds me of Hendricks in a way. Not dynamic stuff, but he kind of just finds ways to eat innings. And for the actual lineup, once again, I said before, they ended up losing their best player in Kyle Tucker. Or you could argue PCA was the best player, but who knows? But they ended up getting a pretty solid piece there in Bregman, who should be batting in the 2 spot in free agency. The projected lineup, though, you have Bush in the leadoff spot, Bregman at 2, Happ at 3, Suzuki at 4, Carl Armstrong at 5. You have Horner at 6, Swanson at 7, Ballesteros at 8, and Kelly at 9. Bench including a couple other guys. You want to go for Amaya, maybe Tyler Austin gets some run, who knows. Lonte, I'll ask you, though, last year this team did break the 90 plateau as they ended up winning 92 games. This year, the division favorites at a plus 120. They were 18-1 to win the World Series, and they're minus 250 to make the playoffs. I'll ask you, they ended up losing Tucker. They got Bregman back. Do you like their offseason, or do you think they got worse?
Yeah, I think they're about the same, but they should be better from the guys that they had, like PCA playing a more complete season and getting more contributions from those guys. So I guess the answer would be I think they got a little bit better. Although Bregman and Tucker are different players, but the production can kind of be replaced, I think, just in the aggregate of what they do in that lineup. They're top heavy, especially at the 1 through 5. So they're going to need heavy contribution from the bottom of their lineup. And I think they'll get that. I like the pitching rotation. I mean, Justin Steele should be back, if I'm not mistaken. Like he should be back. Imanaga.
I was going to mention him in a second. He's supposed to come back in either May or June.
Yeah. So I mean, once that's just like an acquisition at the not at the deadline, but you get what I'm saying. Like it's just like a midseason.
It's basically an acquisition because they're getting a midseason.
Yeah, exactly. So the bullpen has been completely remade. You talked about the guys, and that's a kind of a an issue that they had in certain situations last year. They're also looking for the first division title since the COVID season. The 92 wins to now going, a 4-win difference? I don't think it's that bad at all. I mean, I think they should be either about the same or higher. I would guess like project around 96, but I'm also lower on Milwaukee than what the odds indicate. But I think that PCA needs to have a monster season. Matt Shaw, Moises, Alcantara, like all those guys need to help out the top of the lineup. PCA's first half in like 95 games, 847 OPS, 25 home runs, 27 stolen bases. In the last 61, 634 OPS, 6 home runs, 8 stolen bases. So
Yep.
he's
He was
got
in
to
the MVP race, and then at that point,
right.
he completely fell apart.
And imagine if he would have played. He didn't have to play that level. I mean, he was obviously playing above at an elite level, and it's hard to kind of contain. But if he could just, let's say, if he just split and got half of those, half of the numbers at the first half, then they would have been probably close to a 100-win team. But I think he'll be more consistent this year. He might not start off as hot, but I think the numbers will gradually get better as the season goes. He's got a lot of help. I like the rotation. If the bullpen can be consistent, I think they can win 90 plus games. So I like the Cubs. I would not bet the division price. Anything, I mean, honestly, preseason, I don't really bet a ton of like favorites.
In this division, there's no point.
Yeah,
this division's going to be a circus halfway through anyway.
Yeah, it's no shot. I would not bet anything preseason. I don't have anything under 3-1, so I can't do that. But I did bet some World Series at a little bit better. I think I got like 20 to win. But I mean, that's just I'm higher on them because I think that they have the requisite pieces to be able to compete and the high end talent to kind of compete with the Dodgers of the world. Obviously, it's a tall task, but
Well, to be fair, right now nobody can compete with the Dodgers besides the Blue Jays who went to Game 7.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So I don't know if that matters, but either way,
yeah,
they got
some firepower. They got some firepower. They obviously don't have as much as the Dodgers. Nobody does, but they're one of the next tier that does have some kind of firepower that can score runs, with the Dodgers.
Yeah, I get that. The concern I have with Chicago, though, I really don't know how high this team's ceiling actually is. Because I know you mentioned that you think they could, in theory, be a World Series team. Are you a Counsell fan? Do you like him as a manager? Because I feel like he's fine. I don't think he's amazing by any means. And Milwaukee proved that it wasn't him as the reason why they were winning a bunch of games when he was there, because Murphy took over and they've been great ever since. So are you a Counsell guy?
Floor raiser, not a ceiling raiser.
Yeah, I can get behind that.
Yeah, so that would be more. So like I think he's fine. He's just not going to like elevate you to another like they wouldn't. I don't think they can go from 92 to like 100 plus wins. Like
I agree. That's the issue that I have with this Cubs team.
Yeah.
It's not just the manager, but still, I just wonder if Counsell could be that guy that could get the Cubs into the 95 win range or so. And I don't see it. I really don't. I'm not as high on the Cubs as a lot of other people are. I'm looking at this roster, and yes, I know Tucker got injured, and he was not very good at the back half of last year. Bregman missed like 50 games last year, too. There's no guarantee he's going to stay healthy. I think that you're looking at an absence of power with Tucker being gone. I know that Bregman's more of a doubles guy, which is fine. Good contact hitter. But I do think you're looking at a bunch of guys who they need to kind of step up. And PCA last year was a tale of two halves. And the problem you run into when you have a really young player who emerges as a potential star very quickly, which half is the real half? Is it the first half with MVP upside, or is it the guy that underachieved and kind of fell apart in the back half? And I think PCA, with the, I'd argue, lack of plate discipline, I lean more towards the back half, but of course not as extreme. He was really bad in the back half. But do I think he's going to be an MVP caliber guy throughout this season? And I don't. I think that his plate discipline is not very good. I think he chases a lot of pitches, and I do think that he's going to be a guy who's electric. He's fun to watch. I don't want to compare him exactly to Dela Cruz, but I think there are similarities in terms of upside and downside and the overall volatility with their games. But you're looking at PCA, who I think will be fine this season, but I don't see him repeating the first half of last year. So I'm a bit lower on PCA in general, and with Tucker there as line of protection, as a power guy, I can see this Cubs offense being a bit more underwhelming than people think. They won't be bad. I'm not saying they're going to finish in the bottom 10 in runs per game, but can I see a world where instead of them being top 5, they're top 15, top 12? I can see that. So I'm not really high on this team. The rotation, I think, is a bright spot. We saw Boyd have a very good season last year. We'll see how Steele looks when he joins the actual rotation. Cabrera suddenly pitching outdoors with the wind involved in Wrigley. That's not exactly an easy transition in his first season. I think that Cabrera's got great stuff, but I do want to ask you, is there any concern you have a guy going from warm weather indoors to windy Chicago? Is he going to just hit the ground running in Wrigley? I don't know the answer to that question.
Yeah, me either. I think it's going to be definitely an adjustment period, especially he's coming off one of his best seasons. And I think he capped this. This is the first time he went over 100 innings in his career, if I'm not mistaken. So
injuries are always a concern for him too.
I was just about to say that. And then so regression usually looms unless you're kind of one of the elite guys, and I don't think Cabrera is that. But I do think it's going to be an adjustment period. So I can't really, like you said, I don't really know the answer, but I don't think it'll be, all ice cream and teddy bears off the rip. I think it'll take some time to get adjusted, especially until the weather warms up, until you get into, the April and the Mays and in that world. I mean, maybe even, late May, early June for Chicago. But it's just hard to answer because we don't really know what, he's working with a different pitching staff. Like it's just hard to know, what to expect. But I don't think he'll be bad. I think he'll be fine either way. But it is, that's a good question as far as having to, literally switch climates to pitching, and you're coming off your best year, which typically, doesn't bode well for the first time you reached 100 innings to, keep that pace up. So I do think it's some kind of adjustment period that will take place. I think it'll be early on, and then he'll kind of course correct later.
Yeah, and besides the weather, you're also just playing outdoors, which is something that you weren't doing. But the point is, should they be 4 wins higher than the Brewers when you have that many question marks? And I don't think they should be. I think this number actually seems pretty high to me. PCA was unbelievable in the first half of last year. He was awful in the second half. I'm picking somewhere in the middle for this year. But Cabrera has had injury issues. Boyd was great last season. We'll see if he can do that again. We'll see how Steele looks when he comes back. I know he missed basically all of last year. I have a lot of questions, and I'm not sure Counsell, as you said before, is the ceiling raiser manager I'm looking for. So they might be consistent, but I don't think this team will be as good as people think. My hot take for this team, I do not think they reach 90 wins. That's my hot take for this team. I like the under, actually. I think as a hot take, I think they will miss the playoffs. That is my hot take for Chicago. I have the Cubs missing the postseason. We've seen them a couple of years have high expectations, and they've fallen apart, even with Counsell being the manager. A reminder, the Suzuki drop fly ball from a couple of years ago, you might remember. I'm going to go under on the Cubs. But then again, I'm also higher on Milwaukee, so it kind of balances out. So you're lower on Milwaukee, higher on Chicago. I'm the opposite. So that's kind of my thoughts on them. But either way, I think for the value, there's no value on make playoffs at minus 250. I'll take a flyer on the no. I think there might be some value on that, especially if injuries hit this team pretty hard. Anyway, of course, we have to do our best bets in a second. But anything else you want to talk about for any of these teams?
We summed it up pretty good for all of these teams.
Cool. So before we get into our best bets, and we'll go through the division picks, etc., a reminder they're brought to you by our sponsor, Arnold Fantasy. They've been covered with pick'em entries for every single sport. Chance to win up to 5,000 times your entry. Pick higher or lower on player stats. Mix and match your sports. A lot of options there. And a reminder, we offer to customers, play just $5. Get $75 when it's fun. So we just have the promo code MLB SGPN. We're also brought by Rhythm. So Rhythm's been great in college basketball recently and the NBA for picks. Check them out for model building as well. Build your own. Use the Rhythm House model or use the leaderboard to get picks from other people's models. But a couple ways to experiment with model building. Think you'll like the options there. And if you want to go premium with your membership, use the code SGPN25. When you download the app, get a nice quarter first month. That's Rhythm, RATHMM. Code SGPN25 for a quarter first month at Rhythm. Welcome back, everyone, to the MLB podcast. Finished going through all 5 teams in the NL Central. Time to move on into our best bets. So, Lonte, for the sake of this, we'll go for a best bet for a win total, and we'll go with a future as well, because why not? What is your best bet for the win totals on these teams?
Yeah, let's go Pirates over. I just think that with the volatility of the division, and I think it's debatable that they probably got the best overall, or had the best overall offseason of any of these teams.
I think they improved the most of all the teams in this division.
And especially they hit on key weaknesses, which is their offense. And if they're like we said, man, if their offense can just be average, if they can be average, that's leaps and bounds better than what they have been. The pitching's going to be there with Skeens. Just got to stay healthy. I would like to see a third guy kind of emerge behind him and Keller. But again, if the offense is improved, I think they'll be better. So I like I like the Pirates to go over that win total.
Yeah, so that's going to be your best bet for win total. But what about your best bet for a future?
Future, give me 18-1 with the Cubbies
Okay.
to win a World Series. I mean, like I said, I don't disagree with any of the things that you said because those are all concerns. But I think if everything goes,
they have the talent to pull this off.
They have the ceiling to do it. And of course, I mean, with numbers that big, I mean, all you need is to get kind of halfway there, and you can get a profit off of it. So, yeah, give me the Cubbies 18-1 World Series.
Yeah. So for my best bet, I'm going to go Milwaukee for the win total at 84.5. Even though I understand they got worse, Peralta's no longer there, I understand. But they won 97 last year. Projecting a 14-win regression, I think is pretty disrespectful for a Milwaukee team that kept basically the entire lineup in place. It was a nasty offense last year, even with the underwhelming hitting with guys on base. They get so many guys on base, I don't think it actually matters. They are really good 1 through 9. I like their bullpen, of course. They check a lot of boxes that I look for. I think they should win 90-plus games, actually. So I like the over as my best bet for the win total here. Milwaukee at 84.5. For my best future bet, Milwaukee division at plus 240. They've owned this division for the last couple of years, and I do think that even though the Cubs have a certain upside there, I do think Council's a guy, as you said before, who's not really a ceiling raiser. Milwaukee has won the division in 4 of the last 5 years. They've been rolling in this division, and I will dare the Cubs to do something about it because, as you said before, they have not won this division since when? COVID? I think you said COVID. So it's been a long time. I will pick the Brewers to win this division. I think unlike the Cubs, who are at 120, I think 240 for a team that's won this division for the last 5 years is an objectively solid preseason price. You might get better if they struggle out of the gates. We saw that last year when they gave up 90 runs to the Yankees in the first series, and Cortez gave up like 9 runs in the first inning. But I do think that the Brewers should be the best team, in my opinion, in this division. I'll go for Milwaukee division plus 240 as my favorite future. Anyway, that's going to wrap it up for the NL Central division. We're back once again for the NL West division next week. Lonte, anything else you want to add for the NL Central or for baseball in general?
Excited for the rest of the previews, excited for the season to start, especially for the World Baseball Classic. So I'm looking forward to, getting with you guys at, for 6 or close to 6 months for baseball. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, strap in. But for the updated schedule, by the way, which I do have written down, so we are going to be doing on Sunday, Mal and you are going to be doing the NL West. Then Monday, I'll be doing the AL East with Dylan, because of course my Yankees are doing it, so I got to talk about it. For Wednesday, there's going to be the AL Central with Mal and Dylan, and then Friday next week, I'm back with Lonte to wrap up the divisions with the AL West. So once again, NL first and AL after that, but either way, there will be episodes on Sunday and Monday for the MLB Gambling Podcast. Anyway, until next time, you can find me on Twitter at Radio. Find him on Twitter at XXLonteXX. Check out the MLB Gambling Podcast as well, of course, on YouTube. Like, subscribe. Check it out on Spotify or Apple. Once again, leave your rating and a review. Check it out on the SGPN app. And check us out on Twitter at MLB SGPN. Till next time, good luck to all of you and all of your bets. Bye, everyone.